I'm with a bunch of psychologists to be and one broadcaster. Woohoo!
Hi, Daphen. Thanks for meeting us today.
Thank you
Really
for having me.
appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Uh,
Strangely enough, when one of your colleagues, Nadia, contacted me, I had just interviewed two people with regards to depression. One was a psychiatrist, or is it a psychologist? Because now I know there's actually a difference between a psychologist and psychiatrist. I remember him correcting me on that day, as well as someone from Befrienders. So we know depression as what we see in Hollywood movies, or as the word subscribes it to be, depressed. I'm depressed. We always say, oh, she's depressed, or she's depressed. But there's an actual definition of it, and there's more symptoms and treatments that can be done. So it was a whole ball game altogether. So it was very enlightening for me when I had that just surface interview with a doctor as well as the volunteer NGO from Befrienders. What I knew of depression, there's actually more to it. There's different levels. It's a mental health problem. It's not just something that you just psych up because your hormones are getting to you, or you're just feeling emotional, or it's because of a sudden trauma in your life. There's more to it than just that, or it could just be that. So there's different levels, which was surprising for me. I know a few people who were in denial of being depressed. One of them was my brother. God bless him, he's okay now. But I think he went through a very difficult time when my parents separated for a while. He was always like the strong one in the family. And unfortunately, I think he was hanging out with the wrong group of people. So he turned into substances that made him hallucinate and eventually led him to depression. And it was very hard for us because his depression eventually hit us. But he got help. Finally, we managed to, it was also us in denial, saying, you know, he's going to be okay, he's going to be okay. We're going to wing it, we're going to be, you know, it was not just him being affected, but us also, because, you know, we're in a culture where malu, what's happening to you, malu, you know, because we want to keep our problems to ourselves within the family. But we eventually decided, no, he needs help, he needs professional psychiatric help. And that's why we sent him for rehab. And so far, alhamdulillah, it's been okay. It's just that it's very hard for us, and not just him, to see him go through what he had to go through. I spoke to your colleague about this, and I think I suffered from mild postpartum depression after baby number 2. It was very hard because my first child, everything was a breeze. It was perfect. And then this time around, the second one, the pregnancy was difficult. I opted for natural birth, but that didn't come out my way. And I was going through, I just went through a really public divorce, only to get married a few years later, but having to embrace a new religion. And then we had the news of my second child, and the pregnancy was horrible. And then I was far away from home. Eventually, when I came back and gave birth, my maid had to do something, and she ran off. So it was very hard because during the confinement, it was all by myself, and I was going through a lot. And I remember trying to seek help from my husband, thinking that my husband would be the perfect person. But he sees me as this bubbly, cheerful persona. So it was very hard for him to see this cranky, depressed woman who was just griping and had no... I was just a very depressed person. And I had even thoughts of like, oh my God, I remember, and I feel so terrible about this, but I remember when the baby couldn't stop crying because she had colic. I remember throwing her on the bed and then realizing, oh my God, what have I done? What have I done? What have I done? And that's when I realized, oh no, I need help. So that's when my husband said, you know, and he started scolding me, like, what sort of a mother are you, you know? Who throws their child to the bed like that, you know? She was barely 1 month old. So that's when I knew, okay, I seriously need help. And I thought, oh my God, what happened to this happy camper that everyone knows about, this bubbly person? And there I was being all moodified, and I realized that it was because I was breastfeeding and stuff, and I had to seek help. And if it weren't for that, I wouldn't have been a better person or well enough to look after my kid. Yeah, so those were the two strong, close encounters of depression for me. In Asian culture, we're not encouraged to show the negative side, or even if we know, let's say a friend of ours is suffering from depression, we're not allowed to jaga tepi kain orang lain. It's just not nice to menipuk, you know. And it's not just in depression, we're talking about abuse, violence, sexual harassment. We don't bring up these taboo topics because malu. you know. So I'm sure there are unreported depression cases out there who do not seek professional help, that we do not know of. Or they'll just say, alam ngada lah, gitu, you know. Either they'll mix it with they're being emotional or being, you know, affected by hormones. They don't think that it could be a mental problem, or they put it with, oh, ni mesti kena black magic, oh, ni kena bom boda, you know. So those sort of things, they don't diagnose it as a mental condition, a mental problem or a health condition that could have been passed down by your parents, or a disorder that has been passed down, because it is genetically, it can be brought forward, and there are tests out there, but we're just too shy. Imagine, there was one girlfriend of mine who wanted to seek counselling for the husband and her, and the husband was very against it because malu, you know, we should be able to conquer this ourselves. So the actual act of people going to seek help, when you see a psychologist or psychiatric, they'll do like, gila, you know, they start pinpointing of like, oh, dia tu gila, oh my god, no. They don't know that it's something that you need to seek help for, professional help. So going back to your question, I think there is cases out there, but it's unreported, and only because we are told to suppress that depression and more of a brush off. It's not of a real mental problem or mental health problem. So yeah, that's worrying. That's even more worrisome, you know. I noticed when I was dealing with my brother, he didn't need a solution, and he didn't want us to push him. He just wanted someone to listen to. And I think that is most of the problems, where when you want someone to listen to you really just want that person to just listen to you and not always offer a solution, because that solution might not fit well into what he or she thinks is befitting for his or her problem. But we should be there. We should be able to care. We shouldn't think that it's, oh, janganlah menipuk, nanti macam jaga tepi kain orang. If you think that they have the symptoms of depression and it's not just acah-acah, you need to seek out for help for them. Like, even for myself, I mean, my husband is supposed to be my best friend, but even I was afraid to talk to him about this because I didn't want him to think that I was crazy, that he's married a crazy woman, you know. And finally, when I lashed out my depression on my poor child who is helpless, you know, that's when I realized, oh my god, I really need help. This is something that is causing inside that I didn't understand. I found out later it's my hormones because I'm breastfeeding and all that. But if I didn't know that, if I continue just living on thinking that everything is okay because I'm the sort of person that I need everything to be in control, and I couldn't control that situation, then it's very hard. And I you know, all I needed was my husband to just help me, to just cuddle me. I didn't want him to just take over all the roles of being a mother/father. I just wanted him to realize that I needed help, and that was it. What can we Malaysians do to assist people who you think might have depression is to basically be there for them, to listen to them, to hear them, and to offer a shoulder to cry on. There are numbers out there that you can, you know, seek, because some people aren't very good listeners, you have to admit that, and they try and tend to give their 2 cents worth of how it should be. But there are NGOs out there that are willing to assist those who have problems, and no matter how serious or not, to what degree of levels of depression it is, if you think you have depression, go and seek help for it, or go and talk to someone about it. Don't be afraid.